I've been on the road, whip sitting sideways. Like when then we go, I'ma get in my way. Fuck it, I've been on, got no time to die today.
What's going on, guys? Back with another video. We've reached the end of the month, end of February. Another exciting, very active month in the markets, and unfortunately it came to a pretty bad end for me. So I'm gonna do the month end review after this, but this video I wanted to make separate, and it's pretty much covering my worst loss to date. I have been trading so far nearly 2 years, and this takes the cake. My worst trade ever. And I ended up losing by the end of it all, by the end of the day, $6,700, and giving away nearly almost 3 weeks of gains, which there's really no excuse for it. And honestly, I did deserve this going into this week, and I got my ass handed to me by the market, and it humbled me. And the reason I'm saying I deserved it is because all through February, and what you're going to see in my February review when I put it out, is that there was certain mistakes I was making that I have been making since I started building my account, since I started going from 1K a month to 3K, 5, 10K, and having more money available to me, and therefore making worse decisions because I had more money to dabble in. So some of these decisions, if you watch my other videos that you might know about, are bag holding shorts way beyond the appropriate risk levels. Those are the two main things: bag holding and just holding shorts too long. And also, just what really pertains, the third thing that pertains to those two things is cutting losses and having an ego when it comes to cutting losses, and just being in a market where you're rewarded for not cutting losses. Because what happens is, sometimes, with this huge bubble that we're in, stocks will come down and right back up. And then with me holding shorts, because they come right back up, I end up getting nuked in a short position. And I just had mistakes that were building up every week in February, to the point where it's I think every week in February, I was having 1K loss days. At a certain point during the decay, I was down 1K in realized profits. And I hadn't had red days like that in a while. December, I think I went all green days. January, my red days were max 300. I only had 2. But then February, I was having these 1K red days. And then, one 1K red day. I think the other one I ended up bringing down under 1,000. Nonetheless, I was having these bad days each week, and I'd have to climb back out. I'd be able to successfully make it all back next week and still meet my daily minimums of $2,000. But nonetheless, there was something that was happening. I was facing a brick wall in my trading, and I was not going up to that next level that I really should be headed to. I've been having consistent growth from July all the way to December, even till January, and then February it stalled. And pretty much what ended up happening with this trade is that I was playing an options play on the QQQ, and what happened was, so this whole month of February, I wasn't really playing dips on the QQQ the way I aggressively was in December, where I take bigger size, and that was pretty much my bread and butter for the month. In January, I started calming down because there was so much going on with OTCs and even listed stocks, like the whole GME meme stock thing, that I wasn't paying as much attention. The thing was, there was so much easier opportunities with dips compared to even when I was going at it in December, because dips are getting bought up like crazy, like nothing. Every day, it would just come down, and then the dip would get bottom. You get this big bounce. When I was trading December, there'd be so much fake out. Sometimes it'd come down, fake out, come back down, and then it looked like it would start bouncing. It'd be a nice, a solid bounce, but then it starts struggling, come down again, and I'd be waiting for it to reach a certain price because I already lost. I already took paper cuts coming down, so I'm trying to make back what I lost. So I'd be in a hole, and then I had to climb out by the afternoon where it finally bounced. But during February, like when the bubble was at its peak with the NASDAQ, like every day on the way up, you have these dips that just get bought right up and it keep going up. And I didn't realize that until too late. I'm like, what? Let me just get back into the QQQ, the dips, because that's when I realized I hit a brick wall by trading. I wasn't progressing the way that I wanted to. So I'm like, let me just go to what I'm good with. And when I went to that, incidentally, the bubble was starting to fall apart. So I was late to the party, and I had noticed too. I had noticed the weakness when I was playing it. I'm like, I noticed that it had peaked, and now it was starting to fade down a bit. And what showed me this was the tape was so heavy. The way that the stock was trading was so heavy. All pops were getting sold into very quickly. Consecutive days of fading action with minimal bouncing. A lot of selling pressure. And you could just see on the daily chart that it had peaked. It had went on a run, and it was due for a pullback. And I still ignored that because I'm just not as experienced as sometimes I guess I think I am, as I'd like to be. So I was still trading it as if it was on the way up to the bubble, but not on the backside of the bubble. So I was trading it from based on the action that I was seeing for like the first 2 to 3 weeks of February, and not the action that was happening at the current time. So pretty much what happened is that the first couple of days when I was trading this, luckily I was taking a smaller size, so I was taking maybe 5 to 10 contracts max, so I could be able to tolerate the dips and just kind of scale in and out. And I'd be able to tolerate the dips to the bottom, and then when it came up, I'd take my profits. And then eventually on the Friday before the final week of February, I think it had gapped up, and then I was expecting it to dip, then reclaim. So that's the first red flag. I was expecting it to do something. So for me, it had to do it. So I wasn't reacting to what was actually happening. So I took a more aggressive starter. I was early with my starters, so I had like 5 to 7 contracts. And then it kept going down, and I was just kind of slowly adding one contract here and there to lower my price a bit, and I got up to a size of 10 contracts. And then the thing is, and this is like the third day in a row that it was doing this with the fading, moderate at most pops, and failure to like just make new highs. So on this particular day, it was coming back towards that level that I was originally buying it when right at the open, when it fell right at the gates. And it came up to that level and it was resisting. And at this level, I should have probably hedged with puts, but frankly, I'm not that experienced with hedging. I am getting better at it, but clearly not good enough. So it once that level started consolidating, and then just rejected and just started fading. And in the last couple hours of the day, started repeatedly setting new lows. And I just said, this is just a 10 contract starter. Like, I've seen what's happening with the QQQ the past couple weeks. Like, it just dips always get bought up. So even if this is like a bad day, my contract expired next Friday. So within that week period, like I could just add in, even if it gaps down. I only have 10 contracts for the starter. That's about $3,000 position. I have like a 30K account. I could just add in another 5-6K, bring the average down if it gaps down, and then let it roll through the week, and then just sell when it finally comes back up. What ended up happening this week is that we had a huge, massive pullback, like the worst pullback we've had, I think, since early January. And so when it gapped down on Monday, I did cut losses. So it's not like I didn't cut anything. It gapped down. I immediately added like 60 contracts because the price I had entered in, my average price was like $3.11 on the Friday. The price went all the way down to like 60 cents. So I added in 6,000 shares to bring my average price in like the 120s to 150s. So I got it down a lot. And then I'm expecting, okay, it gapped down. It gapped down a lot. It had a little dip. Now we're going to get the run back up. And it tried, and what ended up happening is it dumped further after I added. So that's when I'm like, okay, let me dump some of my position and recycle shares. So that's what I did. I recycled shares up to a price of around, I think, 80 cents. And then it started to come up. But then, just like last week, the third week of February, where it was all this pressure, pops getting sold into, just so much. It's like someone putting their foot down every time the stock tries to come back up. It was resisting so hard, and I noticed the signs, so I cut some more size. So at this point, I think I was down like 1,800 on the day, and that wasn't a problem for me, because like in December, I'd have like $1,800, I'd have $1,000 drawdowns, and I'd be able to recover. Like that's not a problem for me. And I'm like, the QQQ has proven that it could bounce. Like based on my data, like there's a certain percentage of times that it will end the day above VWAP, certain percentage of times that it will gap up. So I was feeling confident, but this particular week was a disaster. Like the market was weak, and it was not the time to take these types of risks with the size I was going. Eventually what happened is that I recycled shares, and I ended up building, adding my position. I ended up with 100 contracts, so 10,000 shares. Like this is massive. And because I was, and the overall market value, or book value of my position was, I say, around 6-7K, because most of my ads were when it kept going lower. So I was adding when it was like 40 cents, 35 to 40 cents. And I managed to bring it down to 75 cents. And I'm like, and this is on the Monday. So I'm like, look, it's going to be this drawdown now, but we have 4 more days for this to come back up. But it was weak. I finally saw what was happening. I'm like, this is bad, really bad. I cut like half the position, more than half the position, and I ended up down 4.3K. And then I realized, because at this point the contracts were worth like 25 to 30 cents, and my average price is around 77 cents at the time. So then I saw how weak it was. It's setting new lows going into power hour, where power hour you're expecting strength. So I ended up cutting the whole position and swallowing the loss and taking a $6,700 Canadian dollars loss, which really sucked. On one positive is that I didn't blow up my account. Like that's the worst that could happen, just blowing up my account, having to just completely restart right at the bottom. But to give away 3 weeks of gains is unacceptable. Like 3 weeks of hard work, 3 weeks, 8 hours a day sitting in front of the computer, like just going at it, and all that's down the drain. And I wasn't really upset about it like the way that I used to be last year. Like there was a time earlier in my career where losses would just really break me down, because I was in a horrible place financially. Like I would like be sometimes on the verge of tears, crying, yelling, just so mad. I have like a punching bag near me that I just get up and just throw fists at that for a little bit, just to try to take the stress and the anger off. But this is like, I knew what I was doing, and I knew like what I walked into, and I just had to learn from it. And it was a wake up call to revise my strategy, because if you saw my other video from December, I had a situation where I had a position. I think that time I had like 60 contracts, which is like 6,000 shares. And I got literally saved by the bell, because I was like 6K unrealized in the hole. And I think that was 6K US. So it was over 7, probably under almost 8K Canadian. I pretty much at that time almost lost everything that I made on the month as well, except I think Tesla was about to be listed on one of the major exchanges. So going into the close, I think all these options contracts expired, and then the QQQ just had this huge jump up, and I pretty much got saved. I cut for like I think $100 gain, and it's like I have had multiple situations since then as well, where it's like I didn't really respect risk, or I didn't even have a clear risk level. I just kind of recycled shares down, or just kind of expected it to do something and it didn't. And I'd be saved by just this momentum that would carry me up and put me back in the green. So this was a wake-up call to refine my strategy, because it's clear I've hit a brick wall in my trading and I want to go to the next level. In terms of my other profit days, they've been actually slowly getting better, but this red day showed me that something needs to be done to minimize the risk so that I could go back to having consistent green days and then not having to worry about these big red days and having to fight them. Because I could tell you, even with a lot of the green days I had earlier in February, they weren't stress-free days. Like, there was a lot of decisions I made where I'm like, oh, why did I do that? Why did I get stuck in this position? And it's like every week it was happening like this. You'll see in my trade review. But I just want to talk about this, my worst trade ever. And you know, I'm not really too worried about it right now. It's not pissing me off. Like, yes, you know, three weeks of gains, it really sucks. And yes, you know, it is unacceptable. It's not like I'm just like carefree, like, yo, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, I realize the magnitude of that loss. But given the streak that I was on before that, you know, 10K in January, then another 11K in February, and then I had other long-term swings from last year when stocks are coming back up from the pandemic that I had made like 3 or 4K on. So I was on a steady uptrend. So it was kind of, this type of day was overdue, I guess, given that I'm still making so much stupid beginner mistakes. And it was just the market telling me like, yo, like, what you're doing is not the proper way to do things. And that's the thing also about options, is that even though you have great profit potential, there's also so much risk for downside, because like they expire as the time goes on, the value goes down. When the stock gaps down, the options like become damn near worthless. But yeah, the market, if you've been trading the market recently, you've seen as well, like we had a huge pullback, huge dip days. And one thing I also want to follow up with that is that I wasn't trying to get myself out of the hole this time. I knew like with a loss like this, there is no point in trying. So I just kept to my regular gains the next couple of days within like, you know, like $500 to $600 a day. Even though the next day I could have honestly made back almost everything. And what happened the next day was really, for an experienced trader, a gift. And what I mean by that is, so since I was early on the dip before the actual like big market pullback, when it finally bottomed out, I was just taking smaller size, and I had lost a bit of confidence admittedly as well. So when it had, on the Tuesday, when things had finally bottomed out, we got this massive bounce. And I was just so apprehensive, because I was scared, because I'm just watching. I'm like, what if this is like before, back in September of last year, we had some massive red days and some massive gap down days. I don't want to take risks and just hold contracts and just hope that it goes up so I can make back some money. And plus, on the Tuesday morning, I was early again to the dip. That's another thing that I need to work on, just being too early to dips. So I was early to that as it kept going against me, because I'm like, this thing's down so much. How much more can it keep going? Nonetheless, it went further against me, so I had to recycle shares and take losses on the way down. And then when it bounced, I was playing the Tesla and the Nasdaq, QQQ. I sold both too early and missed out on, like, I left 3,000 to 4,000 on the table. Like, Tesla options contracts were having ranges from when I'd bought of like $10 ranges per contract. That's $1,000 on one contract if you just held till the afternoon. With the Nasdaq, it was about, I think, anywhere between $3 or $4, so $400 per contract. So on 10 contracts, that's $4,000. So it's a learning experience, and really, it isn't truly a learning experience unless I actually learn from it and apply it. Like, if I don't do anything about it, then it's gonna happen again. Like, it's gonna happen, maybe not next month, but at some point in the year. But if I sit down, put my head down, and just look at the stats again, start reviewing my strategy, start looking at the timing of my entries, my exits, look at my best trades, my worst trades, filter out the trash that I've been up to lately, and not only just focus on my bread and butter, but refining my bread and butter plays so that I could decrease the drawdowns, because it's clear that even my bread and butter plays that have made me the most money, I've been taking too much risk. And I have been looking at that the past couple of days, so I haven't been aggressive. I haven't been trying to make back the money. I've been taking smaller size and just being happy with that. In the meantime, also studying up, finding out where I can improve. So while I've taken smaller size, I've also been working on improving my strategy, which includes holding longer. So selling too early it's been my biggest weakness. If I hadn't sold too early for a past month, February would have been a way different month for me. But I've been working on that, and hopefully the next time the market has a big pullback like this, instead of being early to it, instead of being on the wrong side of the trend, I'm waiting for when the market bottoms out and it comes to me, and I capitalize on the dip where I'm supposed to capitalize on the dip, and then I reap the benefits. Because Tuesday was like, it was like a dream for a dip buyer. Like, if you didn't get destroyed trying to get everything early, and if you didn't get too scared just seeing the market, everything just falling, and just kind of kept your cool, it would have been beautiful, because so much stocks just had crazy bounces. But that was a trade, the options dip buy on the NASDAQ, and I hope that you got something from this video. I hope that your trading went good. Let me know about any big losses you had recently and how you've been doing to get out of those losses and how you've been improving on them. I hope everything's been going well with you. Be back soon. Thanks for watching.
Go inside for days, I've been smoking purple haze. I've been hurting real weight, on my shoulders can't take no more, can't fake. Smile waiting on some friends, but they ain't that great. What I say, but I'm lying and I have a hiding smile. It's been a while since I had my money up, shit been bad.